Hello. Are you coming too? You're coming too. I think you might be. That's an exciting beginning. Okay, Silencio, go outside, okay? Renee's going to take you outside. That's an outside call. I'm just happy. What does it mean to be vigilant for God and his kingdom? Have that be your one goal? Happiness. I don't know if there's really that much to say other than happiness, joy. You know, if you look at, okay, what are the top 10 myths about spiritual awakening or what it's like to follow God? Well, you just don't have any idea of what it's about because within the consciousness, egoic consciousness, it's made to obscure knowing, identity. You just look online, you see all these questions. Okay, how do I know the signs of spiritual awakening? Well, you probably won't. That's why it's so helpful to have the light, the voice of the light to tell us, because in the play of consciousness is to drive right by, you know, you would have like a recognition that there's wholeness. That's not difficult, this recognition that there's something here that never dies. And you would think that's really great news. But to the ego, it's not great news. The entire structure of consciousness is to find a way to pretend that it's not the light. It's not infinite. It's not, it's going to die. It's just this relishing of the constant threat of death as experience. And it wants an experience of spiritual awakening. That's what consciousness wants. I want to have an experience of spiritual awakening, but it's not an experience. It can describe, okay, I was walking along a road and suddenly I just realized there's nothing, everything's the same and it's total and it's, what is awakening? It's abiding happiness. It's just happiness. There's not anything else. God doesn't have any other plans. And so to follow God, have God in his kingdom as that one thing, is only to accept that happiness is all there is. There's not anything else. How do you know if you're spiritual awakened? Because you're consistently happy. It's consistent peace. It's consistent happiness. So what does it mean? The ego looks at, I remember thinking about that, you know, being committed to God and his kingdom, like service to the whole. And that seemed like, boy, that doesn't seem so good. What does it mean? What does it mean to spiritually awaken? Well, there's no way for it to know what it is, because the whole point of consciousness is to deny what's already here. It's to have an experience, a relishing of other. Everything other than what is. Everything other than happiness, or anything other than that. And then pretend like that's happiness, like the dream state is, and it pretends, okay, I'm really happy. When within the dream, happiness is unknown. It is not known, but there's an idea, it's a concept that of what happiness is. So, Jesus talks about vigilance for God in his kingdom. It's to let no scrap of no to God, no to infinite happiness, to cease to accept that there's anything other than happiness, real happiness, authentic. What's authentic happiness? You're it. We're it. It's what is. And the real glory and the gratitude for, however, I don't really know how it works at all. However, finally Jesus got through. However that crack came, for one little teeny bit of light to come through, called the Course in Miracles. Well, he says it. You called it to you. I called it to myself. It's God calling. And then we just say yes to God calling, even though we don't know what that means. I see how important that is. It has to be there isn't another way. What does it mean to be vigilant for God and his kingdom? Make God your only goal, that you're unwilling to accept anything else in that, I was talking to Jesus about various spiritual teachers. You can talk to them. And he was talking to me about different spiritual teachers. He was talking about Ajasanti and how he is not willing to accept anything in holiness in his mind. And that is it. To be vigilant for God is to be unwilling to have a single scrap of unholiness floating somewhere in the subconscious mind. To have a single scrap of unhappiness. To take responsibility for the celebration that is given to us by God as all we are. It's like the continual giving and receiving of one. And then say, that's all there is. There isn't else. There isn't other. And everything else is accepting less than identity. But how beautiful that we would have reflections in the mind, like Ajasanti, or that are the reflections of being unwilling to accept anything other than the Christ that we are. That's what it means. It means I will accept myself only as God made me, and I will refuse to accept anything else. Because that's the play of consciousness. See, we talk about the dream bubble, that dream bubble diagram, so handy. He's giving such a direct way, such an incredibly, for me, look with me, I'll show you. And he was showing me Helen's notes today. I am in control of miracles, how important. He knows the order. He knows exactly what needs to be looked at and how to look at it. It's to be vigilant for his voice. You can call it the voice of the light. It's whatever. It's the same as the voice. That was like a watershed. Sitting with Jesus, or really at Muji retreat, and contemplating light, which is handy. It's helpful. And just realizing over and over, you keep looking and you see the holy instant. There's just light. That's it. It's just the admission of that, but you can see it and you go, okay, that's the holy instant. It's infinite. It's being vigilant for that only. It's finally admitting that nothing else other than that is absolute. The absolute reality is the only thing of value. And then being willing to see that nothing else other than that is value. Like, no, you know, being hello, little sweetheart. Silencio wants to come, be part of it all. It's what we value. It's exactly the course. It's like the course. Are we willing to, like, come on, Jesus, give it to me, all of it. And that, I see how it takes that. Because we're so used to making exception to the holiness, the play of consciousness, to make exception to what God has created whole and complete in the play. The play of consciousness is the desire to have an experience of the I, me, who is a victim. The I, me, in which everything happens to me and it is outside of my control. And awakening is merely saying the willingness for God and his kingdom to say, is that true? Like, is that true? That's all it is. To see the hilarious nature that the very one that's complaining about pain or suffering, how badly consciousness wants to complain about it, meanwhile sneakily underneath all of that, it wants to keep it. It'll say, I don't want to feel pain, but without looking and seeing, it's wanted. It's wanted. But the relief, we've talked about it here, the abject relief in seeing that. What's awakening? It's willingness to see the miscreation, the misuse of infinite power to play a game of, I want to trick myself. I want to trick myself into believing that it's possible to be something other than infinite happiness. The hide and go seek with God. I'm going to dive into that bubble. And stay in there and keep insisting to God, if the conditions that the ego set, so the ego sets the conditions and then insists that those conditions are real. If this happens, then it's conditional. You start to see how conditional it is. If this happens, then I can be happy. When this happens, then I can be happy. What does it mean to awaken? It means you don't buy the ticket to hell. You see who was the one who was buying the ticket to hell? You just say, no. You see the divine power to say, no, I'm not. No. You see that your happiness is your identity, and anything other than that is a choice not to be that. That's it. You know, that's all there is. But because of the complexity, because of the relishing, how simple it is. It's like so simple. But of course, until you transcend it, it feels complicated because of the desire for complicated or difficult awakening. It's wanted, it's desired experience. Consciousness is the desire for an experience to be asleep and then have an experience of waking up, neither of which are true. But yeah, the spirit can use that hunger, quote unquote, to turn all of consciousness's focus, instead of all of conscious focusing on the untrue. Jesus can use that and turn all of consciousness onto higher order thoughts, Course in Miracles lessons, to have the contrast between the ego thought system and a more holistic thought system until it's seen that thoughts are completely irrelevant whatsoever. But the addiction to thought, see, being asleep is being addicted to thought. And it's just, so many practices are meditation. Meditation can be a helpful way to start noticing the mechanisms of egoic limitation on consciousness expression. But Jesus doesn't focus on stopping the mind because he knows the addiction is thought. You end up having thoughts which are addicted, fighting other thoughts. You start seeing the war. So he says, start noticing, because infinite being has the power. Consciousness, the focus is a function within consciousness. So instead of focusing on dedication to the experience of hell, it's focus on what's true, focus on what's here that does not move or change. And then say no to all that, actually, and see, is that true? You'll see the divine power that comes in by having a definitive, what does it mean to be for God in his kingdom? You have a definitive decision in your mind that you will not tolerate anything that is not of God. Because the habit of the ego and staying asleep in the dream is to tolerate mind wandering, tolerate all these thoughts. It's not you try to stop thoughts. You go beneath the thoughts to see what is generating these thoughts. Thoughts are generated because there's a desire to experience them, to obscure identity. So as the desires fall away, the thoughts, they have no energetic power. They cannot appear without the decision to have an experience of them. They just don't. But Jesus can then use the thoughts to turn in and say, let's have a different conversation. Let's have a different interpretation. So interesting, in consciousness, do we talk about Jesus or not? Is it something bad going to happen to me in that play because I'm using Jesus? I would use whatever is most helpful for healing your mind and ignore everything else. If that means uses you go for it. You use Jesus's name, most powerful symbol within consciousness for the resurrection, with the accent on the resurrection, not the crucifixion. What's awakening? A celebration of all that is, And you can see all these discussions about what is spiritual awakening. It's happiness as identity. It's finally saying the war with myself is over. Vigilant for God's kingdom is the decision to no longer be at war with ourselves. Jihad, the self-jihad. And that voice that we're so blessed to have been pointed out by Jesus in A Course in Miracles, how blessed we are indeed. As you can see when you're reading that book, there's just a lot of doubts. Can this really be real? Can it really be true? The kingdom of heaven within Jesus? But somehow there's something that keeps calling you back to, kept calling me back to it, even though I started and stopped it 4 times or something, I think. Doesn't matter. Jesus is reminding me. It starts right here, right now. Am I willing to see? Am I right now, this moment, make God my only interest, this moment? Am I willing in this moment to have the kingdom of heaven now? All that I'm given by the Father. Am I willing to have it now? And give it my one focus and have nothing else more important. That's the crux of it. See, that's the play of consciousness with a million distractions. To not make God the one most valuable, most precious thing in this world. Give away everything you own and follow me. Can't say if he's going to tell you to do that. He'll tell you to do whatever's most helpful, and then you just say yes to it. It may be the most helpful thing. But just feel how you feel just thinking about that twitch. If it's a twitch, then you forgive it, you know. Any twitch, forgive. And then follow unequivocally. That's the only, it's the only way that I, you know, for me. Like, and I see that, like with Ajasanti, when he was not going to settle. You know, I remember reading about him, you know, he'd go back in that tent in the backyard and he was not coming out. You see that with Buddha, you know, I'm sitting under this Bodhi tree until I see what's true. That may not be the guidance, but for him, if that's the level that you have to be at, I'm asking you, yes, I am not going to settle. I am going to know who I am, and I'm not waiting another day. Like, I love that with Muji. Why not today? Because, not today, because of the desire to experience something other than all the love of the Father right here, right now. It's being unwilling to make that decision that that is the only thing I value. That's what vigilant for God and his kingdom is. I'm not valuing anything else, and nothing of this world has more importance to me than that one thing. The ego goes, holy smokes, what about this? It starts throwing up stones. Muji calls them, I love it. It throws stones in the bush. And as long as these plays in consciousness, the back eddies, and there's a refusal to see how we're trying to insist that our way is the right way. You know, literally, we'll be arguing with Jesus, but Jesus, you know, or, you know, however, arguing with the Holy Spirit. All that's the symbol for is I am arguing with myself to keep a limited identity. I'm going to argue with myself about who I am. That's all pain is. Pain is an argument with ourselves about what true identity is. That's it. And here's in consciousness, because it plays in layers, it goes like this at the apparent level. We call the apparent consciousness level, what appears. It says this, the ego goes, I don't like pain. I'll do anything to get rid of it. But see, it has a little friend down there underneath the level of awareness going, I love this. And I'm going to use this to prove that God is dead. But I'm going to say up here, see, it's so dishonest. That's why we need honesty of God. To find that hidden under the subconscious mind, the relishing of pain, the relishing of suffering, that little voice down there, because on the surface is going, I don't want this. I want to be happy. Meanwhile, it's miserable because there's this little beast down there. We call him Gollum. Going, God, I love this. God, I'm loving every minute of this suffering. And But until you see it, you're going to swear that things are being done to you, being screwed over, the world's just out to get you. That's the play of victimhood. And it's when this is seen in the whole fullness that Buddha throws his head back and goes, holy smokes, the light has been all the time. There isn't anything other than light. There isn't anything other than light. Infinite, unchanging. And it's being synonymous with happiness, with a synonymous with identity. Are we willing to see it though? That's the thing. It's like Jesus said, the last unanswered question, am I willing to see what's been denied? Because it's true. Am I willing to see that my identity is unchanged, the kingdom of heaven within, that there's no thought, there's no feeling, there's no emotion that does anything to that. And that everything appears before me, just like he says in the Course in Miracles, everything appears before me because I desire it. And so then am I willing to see that in the happiness from that realization that I chose it, that it was chosen, I can choose differently. Like, you know, you read that, choose again. You can choose differently. And you'd like it, of course, in the play of consciousness is like, what is that? What am I choosing? I'm not choosing this because we're so convinced, right? I'm not choosing this. But to see it in its fullness, it's so transformative. And to see that pain is chosen and fear is a chosen experience and victimhood's chosen. The happiness is so far off the rails, it can't even be expressed. It's just because it's identity. That only leaves identity once you see you've chosen. Once the full admission, I've chosen, and still there's some closets to be cleaned, but it's really known that he's right. Jesus is right. We chose it, we wanted it, but choose again. That it's simple. Vigilance for God is ceasing to choose for something other than what we are, like choosing for something other than happiness. Jesus, do I relish choosing something other than happiness? And when the honesty of God comes in, which is, that is so happy, because honesty of God is so helpful with the honesty, see, because it's so beneath the level of awareness, the dishonesty lurks around here. And we think what we say is honest. You know, if I tell you exactly how I'm feeling, that is honest. No. If I express that I'm upset, that's honest. No. What's honest is saying, I see that I have a desire to usurp the power of God, and I admit it. I see that I have a desire for an experience, not to be who I am. That's honesty. I see that I do not wish to experience the kingdom of heaven right now. And then, you know, we have Jesus to tell us. Jesus says, what's the honesty here? Help me be honest. Help me discover all the things below my level of awareness that I'm using to deny myself the kingdom of heaven. It's admitting we're a patient in Jesus's psychotherapy class. And without full psychotherapy with Jesus, the happiness, the joy, the resonance, which is the natural state, will seem to come and go. It's impossible for it to be consistent, because the desire for an inconsistent experience remains buried deep within the subconscious mind. the subjugation of the recognition of divine power. And then that play of weakness. I'm weak, I'm a body, I'm susceptible to everything in this world is constantly in play. It's lurking under there, and then it expresses itself in various forms of illness, of suffering, of body experiences. And we feel beholden to that in the play, is have an experience of being beholden to these appearances in form. The I gotchas, which is I want to be a slave to the idea I have of myself. And then the hilarious thing is you start to see here's how it works. It goes up here, it says, Jesus, I'm afraid you're going to make me do something I want to do. So the fear has to be on the parent expression like this, that God's going to make us do something. See, God doesn't make us do it because God isn't making anyone do anything. So the communication is God's going to make me do something, but it has to play that way so that this one underneath can be really happy that if it's coercive, the desire for the experience to be coerced under the level of awareness, I relish that coercion. So I'm going to pretend like God coerces me. When God, the light's just here, it doesn't coerce anything. It is, it just is. But to see that dynamic, there's so much freaking happiness in it, but the ego does not want to see it. It does not want to see in the play of consciousness that it's choosing this here. Be still a moment and just see what's here and honor that. I love that, how Muji says, you don't know what you found. You're not honoring, we're not honoring what we are, our identity. You found your identity, recognize light, and you've given it away. We keep trying to, in the play, is toss it out the window, supreme happiness out the window. What does it take for vigilance? Unequivocal following. Ajasanti said that. There's so many times I've done things I didn't want to do. You have to do that because this I right here, it's the little untrue one. It's the usurper, you know, it's pretending like it has reality. And this is saying, no, that is not true. It's going to be up here going, you're going to die, you're going to die, you're going to die, all the time under here going, relishing the experience of death to light, just loving it, you know, and not wanting to look and avoiding miracles like this. And we just follow it around. But like a pig, you know, they put a ring to a pig's nose. So it's going to follow. And then we just go, we put the ring in our nose and we follow the ego around like this. Like it's true. And then we go, God's going to force me to do something I don't want to do. God's just calling you to wake up and see God doesn't force anything because God's given everything. What does he need you to do something for? You got to ask him. Jesus, does God need me to do one thing? No. But he uses the fact that you believe doing is real to undo you. Undo you from believing that doing is your happiness comes from doing something or avoiding doing something that you think God wants you to do. He's just saying there's no doing whatsoever. So when you do what I ask, it's going to help you see that God has no requirements other than, well, he has no requirements. It's boom, you're already holy. You know, you don't have to go through an extra kind of class, holiness class. You just have to look at where you don't want to be, what you're already made. You know, I already gave you heaven, you know. So the only class we're in is where we don't want miracle, where we don't want to change our minds about what we believe we are. That's it. The tiniest little scrap of suffering comes from that one thing. Not wanting to admit identity. That's it. Sadness, suffering, fear, all relished argument with God. There's not one scrap of it that isn't. Not one, not a bit, not a tiny, tiny, tiny little ooch, not a hair nail. Not a hair nail, but it's happiness. Ego's going, holy shit. That is happiness to see. Vigilance for God and his kingdom is be willing to be wrong about everything. So that's always the fight. Every bit of hope, every bit of suffering, every bit of dark night of the soul, desired experience. Desire for an experience other than holiness. Desire for an experience other than perfection as God made it. Are we willing to see that, though? You can be so freaking happy. Really, every time you look with Jesus and you see another desire release, it becomes so insanely simple, because he's given the recipe. The simple A Course in Miracles. This is as simple. We're going to have a video, but you'll get the preview right now. Course in Miracles made simple. Honesty of God. The light's here. The light's here. Simple Course in Miracles. Jesus, do I have relish an experience that is not light and peace? Answer, yes. Am I willing to see that? Just answer, yes. I'm not at peace. Then show me the relishing of this little one under here, the little golem that's up here saying, I don't want to be unhappy. I don't want secretly. It's got this little secret down in the catacombs going, I love that. The little devil down there rubbing his hands together. Are we willing to see that? Because that's the fastest way. And then you just sit with the relishing. Sit with the relishing of that little thing, the little golem guy. And admit, I really want this. I want this experience of pain. I want it. You'll see how fast it is. Just fear melts. Fear won't be there because you're below. Fear is in between, and the guilt is all in between saying I don't want it and wanting it. That's all the stretch. That's the rip. You'll feel shredded. So just don't go underneath it and go, I want all of this. I'm the generator of it. That's supreme happiness. Your world can't be rocked then, because you'll know every time your world is rocked, you desire the experience. Every time you got a twitch. To Jesus, did I make this? Ask him. But I just I made that. Jesus, I make this. I check in with him every now and then. It's humbling. Did I make this one? Yes. But for a time, you're gonna like. I've said this before, and I'm grateful for that. I just hang on to his legs in my mind. I just hang on for dear, because the whole experience. I mean, that's what we have to get. The whole thing is to make enlightenment seem hard, because we relish the experience. Ask them. I've said it's the best discussion. Jesus, do I relish anywhere in my subconscious mind making awakening difficult? Then you go with him till he says no. Jesus, do I relish anywhere in my mind wanting a dark night of the soul? Jesus, anywhere in my mind do I want to usurp the power of God? You'll be working through chapter 20 like there's no tomorrow. It's like you open up chapter, there's another one and another one and another one. I'm going to go all the way with you, Jesus. I'm not going to stop. I mean, you do it under his guidance. He'll tell you when to take a break because ego get involved in that. But how many of these can I look at? How many of these can I release from my holy mind until happiness is sustained? What's spiritual awakening? Just ceasing to be unhappy, miserable, and having pain. That's it. And then the ego is going to make like it's the impossible dream. It's like a dream to dream that you could be happy all the time. Because look how it does that. All the reflections, like there's you, and consciousness makes 9 billion people who can't be happy all the time, saying it's impossible to be happy all the time. You're going to have fear. You're going to have suffering. Because we made it like that to make it look like it's impossible to wake up. Jesus, do I have a desire to make it seem really difficult? Do I really relish being stuck in my position and not having joy? That's all it is. It's just finally admitting that. But for a while, like I said, I get mad and I go, I've said my story. I get mad about something, I go be mad for 3 days, to hold on to it. And just insist, I want to have this my way. I'm right, I'm right, I'm right. And it's like Jesus said, would you rather be right or happy? See, when you get to the point where you rather be happy than right, because when Jesus is right, you're happy. When you admit he is right. So we're going to duke it out with Jesus. Can you believe that? That's just amazing. But it's really just to be a symbol that we want to fight with ourselves. You have one shred in a belief that pain is true, you're in the dream. One shred, one tiny twitch. You're turning yourself out, you just tossed yourself out of the Garden of Eden by believing that God would make a world of pain. Are you willing to see that? That's the thing. That's why we're together. That's why we're here to support each other in the truth. To come together and join to see that pain has no reality whatsoever. There's no reality in pain. Not one scrap of it. That's happiness. Oh my goodness. So many beings who would say, yes, you can spiritually awaken, but you will still have pain. That's not what Jesus teaches. That's happiness. See, how can you ever be really happy if you believe in your subconscious mind that pain is possible? That pain is real? How could you ever be happy fully and just relax? Like you can't be what you are. You believe that there's some kind of possibility that there is a God who manufactures pain so you can experience it. That's another really amazing thing you start seeing in the play of consciousness that we use to distract ourselves. That pain, and you see the play of it, like beings who insist that you have to go through pain to grow. That somehow we have a God that gives you assignments you can grow. No, the ego gives you assignments so you can stay asleep. We give ourselves assignments because we want to have experiences of growth, as though you can grow. But just notice the light. The light doesn't have, here's the things, here's your checklist for spiritual and self-improvement. It doesn't do that. It doesn't know what that is. The light doesn't know what that is. That's the gold standard. Everything else is an idea arising in the mind that wants to stay asleep. Wow, but it's so much happiness is new. Now the ego might want to dive under a couch or something when it hears that. But isn't it happy news to hear that pain isn't real? That we have the power to transcend it? but do not underestimate the relishing of the experience of weakness. How badly you want to dive into the dream, like, Jesus was showing me, we have that diagram, and it's going to kind of be an update to the diagram, and how the ego loves to ride the slide. Okay, so you come out, and Jesus says, he whispers in your ear, here's the dream bubble like this. It's surrounded by desire. And you come out and you look at a desire and you realize, man, I do desire that. And you have a really clear seeing, right? It's so clear. You see that you made the whole thing up. And, and I've laughed about this. I've said that, 10 minutes later, I'd be going, well, Jesus, what have you done for me? That was really great. But, right? So he's showing me all these pictures of slides that go like this. They're really high, amusement park. And the slide goes like this, like Chutes and Ladders, that kids game. If you land on the wrong thing, then you go down 3 levels or something. You got to start over. But that's how it is. We like the ride, descent into hell. You can ask him, Jesus, do I relish an experience of descending into hell and trying to escape hell? That's the pleasure pain cycle. See, I can feel happy now, I can feel sad then. And then the beings that say, I have to fight, I want to keep my emotions, I need to feel my emotions. Well, if you feel that way and you believe it, that's what manifests. But in honesty of God, if you ask God, do you need to experience your emotions to transcend consciousness? Ask Jesus. The answer is no. Do you need to experience emotion? No. Nope. And you look at infinite light, it does not have express your emotions on its checklist. It's not to make them bad. They might be expressed, okay? God doesn't make anything bad. Jesus doesn't say anything bad. He just says, let me talk to you about what's most helpful. That's all. What's most helpful? You're it. What's most helpful is to go to the desire that generates the emotion and see that, and as that's released, emotions arise out of the desire. Emotions are there by consciousness to make the experience feel real, to kind of cement the perception that something actually happened. But there's no requirement that you express emotions to wake up. I think that feels helpful to be clear. If you ask Jesus, ask him, Jesus, in the light of divine being and honesty of God, is there a requirement that I express them? No. Release the subconscious content. Yes, it's helpful. But you can do that by looking directly at the relishing of the denial. I relish having this experience of saying no to God. I'm loving every minute of it. And since that arises before any thought, feeling, and emotion, and that's the engine that drives all suffering, just go there. But you'll see as you start looking how much you don't want to look, that simply, how much consciousness would rather, instead of looking at the desire for the experience, it'd rather be in the experience. It'd rather experience what comes next after desire. What comes next after desire is guilt and fear and relative experience. It would rather that. So as soon as it starts looking, it's jumping on the slide to slide down into sensory experience and go, no, this is proof. I want to prove that I'm separate from everything. This is going for proof, that it looks for proof, that it uses the focus mechanism in consciousness to look for proof that separation is real. And through honesty of God, Jesus, by being vigilant for God and his kingdom, for Jesus's voice, call it the Holy Spirit, the light, whatever voice you can call it. For me, Jesus works, praise the Lord and hallelujah. He finally convinced me that speaking his voice was worth it. Valuable, talking to him all day was valuable and worth it. Thank you, Jesus. And to trust him unequivocally and follow him unequivocally is the only thing that's valuable. Because he had to teach me honesty. Because I was living in the, we're living in the world dishonest land going, I'll tell you the truth as I see it. You know, I'm going to speak I have not spoken what I need to say. And so now, see, you have to see that's on both sides of this. I have to speak. No, the I is always an I want. It does, it wants something. I want to speak what I think is the truth. No, it's Jesus, what would you have me say now? What is the divine expression? And then speak those words. And it's like, that's the only thing of value, is speaking as the Christ. Because the words that the Christ said are a celebration of all that is. It's not, it doesn't have a, I'm going to convince you of something. It's just, it's happiness celebrating, and then words come out. None of, in the absolute reality, not a single word is true. So words aren't truth. They can point to truth. They just point. There's happiness here. Okay, let's look at that. Maybe that's true. Maybe there's only happiness. Well, what if there's only happiness? The ego's going, I'm not sure I want that. The ego is a mechanism to find a way not to be happy. 50,000 ways to leave the love of your life, which is heaven, to prove that consciousness is real. As you can ask Jesus, is consciousness real? Consciousness has no reality. The only reality there is absolute reality, which is light itself. That's it. That's all. Done. We'd all be done if we accepted the holy instant as identity. So vigilant for a Course in Miracles student is, what next, Jesus? What do I need to see next? 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 Show me the relishing. I'm gonna relish this until there's no more relishing of an experience that's other than infinite happiness. The joy from that. There's the sheer celebration that all it is. Celebrating. You're just celebrating and you're following. Like David talking about, he's just licking as the popsicle. If Jesus gave him a popsicle and then there's some kind of tragedy next door, he's licking his popsicle. And that, you know, the ego would interpret that, oh, that's just so uncaring. No, that's happiness. That's staying in function, which is supreme happiness. And then if you're guided to something, then you follow that. But there's no salvation, there's no illusions that something in form is savable. Spiritual awakening is accepting that your salvation is your choosing to no longer be unsaved, unsavable. That there's someone to save, that you have a function in saving someone, other than to see that you've already signed, sealed, delivered, I'm yours. God, there isn't anything else. There's no way to be something else. So just know, if you're feeling pain, you're choosing it. It's just so powerful. That's what we don't want to admit. We don't want to admit that every twitch is chosen experience, but that it can be used immediately. You see, and if it prolongs, it's just a refusal to accept the correction. That's it. It's making whatever he says, don't make it real. It's making the experience real. First, we want to make pain real. That's why magic's not helpful, because it's trying to make pain real. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to, thank you, Jesus. It's so happy to hear about and be reminded the value of vigilance for God and his kingdom, and how much happiness is ridiculous. But it takes a lot of vigilance, because we're so vigilant against being happy. I'm going to try to see if Greg wants to start his camera up. I have to ask him if he'll start his video. And then we'll go and see if there's anybody who has questions. Greg, do you have any questions today? We're asking some great questions for all of us. Last time we spoke. There he is. Hi. I asked to unmute. These were so good. Everybody loved your questions, didn't we?
Hi. I get my glasses. Where's my glasses at?
They're all for us. We'll have Jesus sit with us.
Yeah, every time I listen to you, I want to thank you. And I try to catch you every night at 6 o'clock you're on, or your pre-recorded stuff. And I just feel really connected to you and your path and the people you had on, your people that are staying with you. And I just listening to you, you're just so happy, and your smile, and when you laugh, and when you're communicating, it's just a joy for me. And I just like to watch you every night. I just wanted to say that.
Well, we feel you. We feel you. I mean, you see how blessed we are to have mighty companions that are so devoted, that want God this much.
Yes.
And the beings here really do. If you, oh my God, they do. I mean, it's humbling, you know?
Yeah. And
it's just a symbol. We're a symbol of being unwilling to settle for anything other than what Jesus promises, which is happiness.
yeah.
So thank you, Greg. We love having you on board with us on the God train.
On the God train, yay. I'm reading in the course, and in the manual for teachers, how are healing and what at one meant related. And it said, it's on paragraph 7 at the very end, sentence 8. No longer does he stand apart from God, and they're talking about me, determining where healing should be given and where it should be withheld. Now can he say with God, this is my beloved Son, created perfect and forever so. And it's about forgiveness and being able to just forgive everybody and live in forgiveness. And my thing that's going on with me now is to forgive all of my past perceived where I didn't measure up, or another person didn't measure up, or, if you will. And my question is that sometimes the continuity of my question is that forgiveness is kind of not real easy at times. And it says only asked to be taught, teach me how to forgive. Do you have any insights about learning how to forgive? And where, like, even the hardest ones, someone that's really hurt you, and you go like, I don't care, I'm going to still forgive you. I don't care what it takes. I don't care what it's going to do. I don't care how I got to get there. I'm going to listen to. And I think it's just that vigilance to say, I don't care. I'm going to I'm going to learn. I'm going to hear you say to me, I'm going to listen. I don't know what I'm saying tonight.
Well, there's so many blessings here in this, Greg. There's so many blessings for, first of all, to be determined to see it another way first. Right. And so we're determined, I'm going to see this interpretation. I want to be wrong about my interpretation of what happened. So that is powerful. And the second part is because Jesus is saying, look, I'm going to show you how wrong you are. So the question is, am I going to ask Jesus to show me the underlying condition? See, I'm trying to make something true. Are we willing to doubt that our ideas about the whole thing are true and just say, okay, I'm going to ask Jesus his interpretation. So why don't you ask him his interpretation of an example in your mind of something that you think needs forgiveness? And then let's just hear what Jesus tells you. What does he tell you about it?
I felt I heard that my interpretation that if I don't have a victim or I'm not playing the victim, my need to be right versus being at peace, that I want to assert God's power and play God because for some weird reason I have this thing that I think I know better than God. And it's to accept that God is not the enemy. And that I don't need to be right. I just need to accept happiness. And he's given me all the love I want. He's giving me everything. And to accept this, and why don't you just buy into this, Greg, into the program? This is the truth. This is the real. And I'm getting goosebumps right now.
So what's he teaching you about forgiveness then? What did you learn from him about forgiveness just now?
You either forgive, you forgive all the way. You don't forgive a little bit today. You either forgive entirely or not at all. To accept this as truth. And it is the way, the truth, and the light. And I'm inside of you. And you can have the way, the truth, and the light. And like the other one the other night is this, I will teach with you. I will live with you if you will think with me. And so it's you forgive entirely or not at all. Now, I don't know if I specifically heard that right then, but I've been having this where if I say it here and keep saying it, and become one. And, you know, it's accepting the truth. But like, so I have these entities or this past, and the past is gone. It can hurt me not. Has no use anymore. It's just it's where the ego wants to pull you down, like you said, into Gollum, and why I go there and still want to relish it is I'm learning. I'm still going, like, I don't know where I'll default to that almost. And it makes me suffer. Like, I'd just rather go suffer for a while. See ya. Au revoir. You know, remember that I'm unconditional love, and all my brothers and sisters are unconditional love. We're all equal. And why I want to go into my mind, I think in AA I'd learned that don't go into your mind alone, because it's a bad neighborhood. You don't want to go in there alone. And I don't know. I just really admire you. And when you told me the story the other day that I was on to, was that you went into the prisons and were talking to the women, and it was an assignment from Jesus. And your courage and your strength, I just admire so much that you just do it. And you were talking about last night when you were on pre-recorded that you just you accept this as your you accept the assignment and be willing to go to any lengths. So I just really admire your program and what's going on. That's about all I got. I'm kind of fishing now.
Well, you see, you have to see the gift that you lay at your brother's feet, you know. If I didn't have the brothers in the prison to help me this way, do you see how important brothers are? Or have you come, Greg, and asked questions, or whoever I handed that sheet, Janet, I handed that paper, that first chapter, Jesus New Covenant, to Janet, going, where? And she goes, where's the second chapter? I wasn't even thinking about it. You know, we go together, you and I.
Yeah.
So if Jesus calls us to be together in holy purpose, which I feel he is, then I just say yes to that. Come on, Greg.
Yeah.
Come be with us. You know, if you're called to that, come be with us, like Martin's called, hearing the call too. And then we go together, you and I. Do you see? We have to be in heaven together, because that is the only way God made that.
Let's join together for your message, my message of light.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we're bearers of light. We call the beings here yogis, which means bearer of light.
Yeah.
And that's everyone's function here, to bear light. And by bearing light and bearing witness to the light through the assignments Jesus gives us, that's the celebration of all that is. See, we accept the assignments that he gives because he knows what's most helpful for healing the mind. And then we say, don't delay that. That's the most important thing. Is like you're saying, you step into it. It's like, I had no idea. I told people here, I don't know how that happened, that I was allowed to go into prison like that. It can only be Jesus. I mean, you know, you just don't walk in and then all the stuff I brought into those prisons, like mouse traps and all this other, how did that ever get in there? I don't know. It just takes Jesus, you know? So we say yes, and then it was a way he was showing me he'll provide the way. That was before I would admit I was talking to him. As I've said here, if I realized that was Jesus talking to me, I would have probably freaked and went off the deep end on that. So, he's just going to take us step by step, thank God. And it is trusting him unequivocally. I see that, just you keep your mind on that one thing, God and his kingdom. It's Jesus for me all the way. I don't want to say Jesus or bust, but they'd say in the wagon train, California, that doesn't sound so appealing. There are a lot of Indians along the way, but just see if there are Indians along the way, it's a desired experience, and this need not be. And then look at the relishing. That's all we did. That we go together, you and I. So we love it. We feel you. We're blessed to have the mighties that are here. Look at them, Oh my gosh. And they did they've been given so many off the rails sharing too. Just see those sharings that they're giving, well, it was the relishing today of Mary's session today. It was see, yes, what was it? Deprivation and lack. Let me tell you, is that a good one to look at deep in the mind and see how much that's relish, deprivation and lack?
Yes.
Oh, it's such a kingpin in that golem down there. Well, that's what the ego is. It's it's nonstop relishing of deprivation and lack.
Yeah. That we think that we need to suffer. We feel that we need to suffer.
Yes.
Like the poor shall inherit the earth misinterpretation that I should suffer and be poor and lack and limited.
Yes.
And deprived.
Yes, that is such a deep belief, and that you have to suffer. And a lot of the saints, Jesus told me, a lot of the saints had that deep belief that they had to suffer, to get to heaven, because that's how consciousness plays. I can win heaven through suffering. See, this is the way I'm going to get through heaven. So if I have the most horrific awakening experience, I did my job.
Yeah.
But that's why Jesus is offering his help. It will be a gentle awakening if we're willing to listen to him. If we're willing to release the desires to have a not gentle experience. But you'll see how much the ego does not want a gentle awakening experience. It wants as hellacious awakening experience as it can get for itself. Really, it wants as much pain and suffering because he got Gollum relishing all that. So, but he's given us the way. Just join. Every time there's a twitch, join and look. Get on Joining Express. Offer to be on Joining Express. Join. You'll see it's the solvent of hell.
I had a thought today that I would take a sign down to the square here in Colorado in Lafayette. It's this little square, and the people go by a lot. There's a lot of folks in their trucks, and I would put thank you restaurant workers, or thank you for thank you, I don't know, something to give gratitude and open some love and say thank you. But I was thinking, I don't know. And I don't know if that was Jesus calling me, say, yeah, you should go down there next Saturday with a sign and say thank you for my life. I don't know. Thank you.
That's adorable. Let's just listen and hear what we hear. That's why it's so good to join for guidance, because guidance is for the whole. And so we'll hear it if it's helpful. And then we're just, okay, was that guidance or not? What do we hear? You can look her. Let's see. Mary has a signal for you. Mary, what'd you hear from Jesus about that? Can you see the thumbs up over that? Anybody else hear anything? Was that guidance? I heard a thumbs up. That was in guidance. Good for you.
Yeah, it felt like guidance. It really did. And still,
Yes, yes. It was that's always a celebration of all that is when we follow guides, but the ego, see it, it likes to throw out doubt about guidance. But we don't have to listen. So, and then you have your brothers to come in and who are committed like you are to that deep listening and following. And so you go inside and ask Jesus, was that guidance?
Jesus was that guidance. Yes, yes, yeah, yes, yes. Yeah. I just worry that I sometimes, uh, I got such a big ego. I'm just worried that no, that's the ego talking. Yeah, I need to go do that. That's just the ego talking, cutting me back. So they cut me back a little bit.
That's good. But you know what one guy said when he heard that voice say, I got a big ego? He just, someone else told him, you tell that ego you got a bigger God.
I got a bigger God.
I got a bigger God. But you caught it. That's spectacular. See, when we start catching the forked tongue speaking, okay, that's our function, is to catch that forked tongue and do not invest in that. Invest in the one voice that worth having come out of the mouth. It's like, where's that voice coming from?
Yeah.
You caught it. See, that's the only way. It's by really having that level of awareness of which voice is speaking.
And is it you bring truth to illusion? Because you don't bring illusion to truth, or no? You bring your illusions to the truth, and then yes, and the illusion is that the ego, don't listen to the wrong voice. It'll send you down the wrong way and won't enlighten you. And you can't join with you. You can't join with your mighty companion. But I think I depend a lot on my self-talk. But I think you were mentioning the other day, you keep saying that until it's so true that you hear this voice and it's just you on the right direction, brother. And I talked to my friend and said that I was going to listen to your programs every night at 6. And so we shot back our video time to 7:30 so that I can hear you, because I want this more than anything.
Yeah.
I'm willing to go to any lengths to do this. And because I see you're such a guide, here in form for me, and your stories about how you just walk the walk the talk, as they say. And I know it's going to happen. It cannot but happen.
Yes.
Me to connect if I keep walking this path and asking and asking Jesus, am I walking? And walking the way you would like me to do and what you want me to do. And when you were saying that it's the best place for me, there's no other place to be, and especially during these kind of difficult times, here in the US, there's a lot of people looking for some light. And that's my goal. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Jesus, a good goal. God's a good goal to have. Jesus knows that. See, the light itself doesn't have goals, but in the play of consciousness, we have to put. I mean, that's just a perfect statement, because for tonight's discussion, or about Jesus is sharing about God is my one goal. It has to be that focused. That's the only way. Otherwise, there'll be little sideways moves that divert and keep time alive in the mind. There'll be little distractions that'll come in. So it has to be like that. It has to be that one thing, and that, you know, like Adrasanti and he's back. I am not leaving this until I'm going all the way. And it needs that kind of conviction. You can ask Jesus. So it's beautiful. Because there'll be lots of time, you know, in the play, you just want to back down. Because the ego is a backer downer, you know, it's backing down from true identity. It doesn't see that, it looks really innocent. It thinks it's just going to go move to a no location, but it's just unwillingness to see. So it's the willingness to see, demand to see everything. I'm going to see everything I need to see, you know, and that way you're not, you know, slapped around by this thing here, by the untruth. You're just going, no, I'm going to look at it, and just look at it and you see its non-existence. It's not to look at it to make it true. You know, Jesus said it's just a temporary vehicle to see where correction is needed. You know, because eventually you see correction's never needed, because what's made wholeness doesn't need correction. But as long as there's a belief in fragmentation, it's a helpful stepping stone. The light doesn't need to be committed to be what it is, because it just what it is, but it's a helpful stepping stone along the way to turn the mind into that kind of focus, that God's the most important thing. It's valuable for me. So I just asked Jesus, is that valuable? He's the one that knows. He's in charge of the atonement, you know. So I just asked him. Yes, vigilance for God and his kingdom. Yes. And laying aside everything else as being important is, that's how you find the kingdom, is don't look for it in anywhere else other than where Jesus tells you to look. That saves a lot of time. We love you. Oh, good. Renee's
yeah.
coming.
Oh, I was just hearing that,
Yeah.
we can all hear this.
Yes.
And we can all hear this right now. So, yeah, a celebration together. Yeah. There's no limit.
Okay.
And it's just speaking and practicing that, you know, saying no to the other voice and just saying no.
It's just a small ripple in the ocean, and not to value it and slowly understand it's valueless. It has no value to me. I know what I want. I want unconditional love, and I want to be unconditional love. I think it's really important for me, what I'm going through is, you know, go back to it, is seeing my brother and sisters unconditional love, and living forgiveness is the most important thing. Because I have some, like, I'll go in and I'll think, oh, what happened in the past, and I'll go like, you must have not forgiven them entirely, you know. Or it might be just any personality or anything, and I just go like, I feel I'm not loving right now, Jesus, to these people, you know. Help me to be kind to this person, or just see him as a light, but not to condemn him, you know. And I'm learning that. I think I need more work on this, is to just every person, even someone that was a difficult personality, see them as a child of God, as unconditional love, and forgive them. You know, anybody that you perceive that's hurt you, because it really isn't so. They never really hurt you, as the Course says. And forgiveness is something that never occurred. You know, your brother, what you think your brother did to you did not occur. And it just all of a sudden you feel lighter, and you go, oh, that's the path out.
It is the path out.
Yeah, I was hearing that this morning, forgiveness, just the simplicity. That's it. See that there's no choice not to be God, but you are.
Thank you, Jesus, for bringing us together in this holy celebration. Thank you for your questions, Greg. We're always grateful. Send them, you can email them, however they come to you. We're happy to hear.
Thanks for having me. I just feel like I found a place that I want to be. And thank you for being that light for me to go like, oh, this is what I want. I want to. You just have a glow about you. It's just incredible.
Love you.
Bye, you guys. Take care.
Bye.